First, they used to try podcasts, and she's now blended some vodcasts into our environment. Thank you, Nadine.
Thanks very much. Okay, good morning, everybody. Okay, as you heard, I've been working with podcasts for quite a while, and basically been there, done that, got the t-shirt, and we needed a new challenge. And so this year, the podcast morphed into vodcasts, and that's what I'm here to share with you. Just some background. I embedded this into a fourth-year module, which is really all about pharmacy practice management. And the area I teach a little bit with patient management, and I do some communication theory, adherence counseling, all of those kinds of issues. And so the focus here really is on interpersonal communication. We assume at this stage the students have all their clinical knowledge, so this is really an application in the real world. The real problem is that when I started here, a couple of decades ago, at class sizes about 15. Now I've got 115. So that brings with it, many of the challenges that we all had. And I must say, I was green with jealousy. Somebody spoke about having 9 students, and we were going, huh? Okay. All right, so, through the years, we've had written assignments, done the role playing in the class. Then we went into podcasts. And of course, we also do OSCEs, the Observed Structured, and OSDs, which is a pharmacy-specific one, Observed Structures Dispensing Evaluation. So the podcast worked well, did all of that. So what my problem was, I've got these really large classes, and we can't use the class time. There simply isn't enough class time to have students doing role plays for me and for each other. And I wanted an integrated assessment. In other words, I wanted to take what was 3 separate podcasts and integrate it into one assignment that covered all these subsections of my module. And also, I wanted to assess their actual competence, not what they wrote, they said they would do, but to do it. Okay, yeah, we could continue the podcast, but it was missing one component of being able to assess their communications. So this year, what I decided, I gave each student a different prescription, and each student then got an issue. So your patient might be hard of hearing, your patient's parking meters about, your patient doesn't want to take medicines, and I just pulled out a whole lot of real life issues, and they were attached to these different scenarios. And said, okay, off you go, find yourself a patient, and record a video. 10 to 12 minute video, how you would interact with that patient. Simulated patient at this stage. Okay. Before that, they had an orientation to the software, the editing software, iWiSoft. They were given some technical guidelines. Use your smartphones. I mean, that was the end of the technical guidelines. And they were given some guidance about camera placement and sound and light and all of those good things. And then I gave them a rubric, and I just wanted to note here that this was a significant, and the reason it says significant, because I can't remember whether it was 10%, 15%, or 20%. It was last semester, I can't remember that far back. So they had their rubric. Okay, and Farid was the person who did the iWiSoft. Okay, they posted on eCanva. Now, the problem was I was leaving town, and I had to get all these vodcasts with me, take them along with me to be able to assess them. So we bypassed eCanva, and the students simply had to upload them on laptops, which took forever. Okay, and in any case, they would not have been able to load it onto eCanva. We know the 20 megabyte, and that I think is the major problem that we're facing when you want to work with this. Okay, while I was doing this, I was invited to speak next week at a big pharmacy conference where I'm going to go into a lot more detail about really the issues around using a simulated environment versus a real life environment. And so what I've got here today is just part of that. And to that end, I invited the students to join me, and we had 2 focus groups, and I just got their feedback sort of for this presentation that I'm giving next week. And so I'm going to let the students' voices speak. So whenever I have something in a bubble, it's from the transcripts from those focus groups. So of course they were excited, very excited. There was some fear, some worry, but it dissipated. And the interesting thing is, I just pulled that picture out just now while I was sitting there. I have one student in the class who's significantly older than the others, and she was the only one that was really, really concerned. This was out of her comfort zone. She's just, this is not me. Okay, I had some empathy for her and the age issue. But the rest of them really didn't worry. IYSoft, let me summarize, they hated it, they didn't like it, they don't want it. But what I really appreciated was the resourcefulness of the students. They said, we can't deal with IYSoft, it's not friendly, you can't sync, the editing's difficult, etc. So is it okay, we've gone off and found something else that we can use, which they did all on their own. So they took responsibility. They were well aware that technical help was available to them, but they rejected it. It was quite an interesting response I got. No, we didn't need the guys there to help us. We wanted to figure it out on ourselves, by ourselves. The other thing that came to the fore was very much the resident techno geeks in the class. And the students said, but there's always somebody in the class that knows how to do it. And it was very empowering because usually the techno geeks, and I'm sorry that sounds disparaging, tend to be the ones that sit in the back and don't say very much. And suddenly these were the students that everybody was turning to, and they had the star role. And this was all, they did this themselves. So the technical issues, I was a bit concerned about them using their own phones. They didn't have a problem. They had some issues. They also enjoyed the opportunity to be creative. And I must say the students went way beyond what I expected in terms of the creativity. Not to the extent where it interfered with what I was trying to achieve with the assessment, but they were enjoying it. So they put all sorts of effects and subtitles and fly-ins and color and music and all kinds of fun things just to liven it up a bit. Some said, let me just get this up here, that the editing, re-recording took longer, but it was interesting that they identified that as a learning opportunity. And so to me, that really is a positive. Even though they've said it took long, they identified it as something positive. Their overall ideas about the assessment, they loved it. Okay, they said it built their confidence. They told me that it built their confidence so that when they went on their next clinical rotation block in the hospitals, they were able to utilize what they'd learned during this assignment. Okay, so that was my problem statement in the beginning. What were the outcomes? I think in terms of not using class time for the role plays, etc., it worked. I certainly had an assessment. But there were some other outcomes that I had not envisaged, and that's what I want to quickly go through, the pluses. And I'm going to let the students' voices talk here. These are all verbatim from the transcripts. They recognized the integrated approach. They found that, instead of having those separate podcasts, integrating, and the rubric was quite extensive, it covered all the different aspects. They found that they remembered more. They identified that they needed to go back. 215 is a second-year module to another discipline, to pharmacology, and they recognized that they had to do that in able to cope with this assignment. And they dissed the whole thing about writing. They really loved this. They told me that they loved the integration. And then this was about being the first group in the School of Pharmacy to do vodcasts. Oh, they love being special. Absolutely enjoyed that, being ahead of the pack. They learned from it. They were able to apply from what they did in the simulated environment when they were dealing with real patients in the real world. And this, I didn't expect. They said, please, we want more. Okay. Now these focus groups were done just after the June exam period when I could get some students together, because this was a first semester module. So last minute, what could I do in the second semester? Now I have another module with the same class where it's really is a teaching module where they have to research topics. And traditionally what I've done is that they would present the topic in the class. We have peer assessment. I've got 115 in the class. It's getting a little bit difficult to do that. So what I've done is for this semester, I've changed that into a vodcast. They are preparing this whole topic, uploading it as a vodcast, and then in the class they simply are presenting a 5-minute summary, which we can deal with in the class. And then we will make these vodcasts available to the students for the peer assessment at a later stage. This is all ongoing. They've only just uploaded their vodcast last week. Obviously, there are uploading difficulties. I'm still battling. They could not upload them. And what happened was a student emailed and he said, we cannot upload these vodcasts. Their files are too big, but there's a way they can do it. Can I tell the whole class how to do it? I said, go for it. So what they did is they chose to upload it to YouTube. It was not the best way to do it, but I let it go because it was their solution to a problem. Okay, it was better doing it on Google Drive, but we said, let them do it their way. And that's what they did. Okay. So what have I learned? The obvious. It has been an extraordinary tool for me to achieve that integration that I was looking for. It can alleviate the large class limitations, even though the assessments are pretty time consuming. But at least each one is different, so you don't fall asleep. Okay, but the biggest lesson that I've learned, it's okay to let the students know that you're not that tech savvy. And I think the more I was saying to the students, hey, I'm an oldie. Come on, you people. They seem to take more and more ownership. I've never seen so much excitement. These students were in and out of my office because they had recognized now they had an opportunity to teach me. And they took to that like ducks to water. You know, and of course I hammed up the age difference quite a bit, and it really worked very, very well. Yeah. When I first started with the podcast, they said they thought it was cool that one of their oldest lecturers was doing podcasts. So, you know, I got a lot of street cred also, being an oldie and doing these things. I've learned that it's absolutely essential to involve the students when you're starting something new. Involve them in the development. They take ownership, okay? And, you know, encourage and also acknowledge their resourcefulness when they come up with ideas of how to overcome the technical glitches. And that to me was extremely interesting. And then, absolutely, somebody else had that on the slide, the support and the help. And I was sending emails, help, okay? And the team is there to help. And I sometimes think somebody out there saying, oh, not that one again, looking for help. And my final thing to you, isn't it really about recognizing that we're dealing with the millennial generation? They're wired differently. And we need to move away from our preferred way of doing things to saying, where are the students at? And I just found that the interaction and the empowerment, because here was an acknowledgement, hey, this technical stuff is not my generation, it's yours. And the students just really, they seem to blossom because you're up front and you're saying to them, you know what. And then isn't it really about really edutainment, because really their attention spans are shorter than I don't know what, and they love the ability to entertain and be entertained. So that's been my experience, largely positive. And the interesting thing that I haven't got here, that I'm going to be presenting at the pharmacy conference, is that the students are saying, we don't want to do this in a simulated environment. We're quite comfortable. We want to go out into the real world, and we want to videotape. Of course, there'll be all kinds of issues with variance across the difficulty of the prescriptions and informed consent and all kinds of issues. But they've enjoyed this so much that they want to take it out. They've given me all kinds of ideas. Once our students graduate, they do a year's training, an internship, during which they are assessed. They are telling me I must tell our statutory body that the interns should be developing vodcasts and uploading vodcasts. So, you know, I really enjoyed the ownership that they took, and I've thoroughly enjoyed this journey. Technical issues, huge issues still, but I think we'll get there. Thank you.
I just wanted to point out that the exercise they had in mentoring you will be very valuable. Corporates are starting to realize that the only way to make their senior guys more effective in terms of IT is to let the junior guys mentor them. And that's a very important skill to learn.
I think we've got something else. We have a service learning component running through our curriculum. And part of the reflections that they need to do is they need to reflect when they go out into whatever environment, what they've taught and what they have been taught. So this is something that we're inculcating. But as I said, I saw a lot of excitement about that, and I think it's certainly something that I need to build onto that one.
What is a vodcast?
It's a video. Yeah, a video. Yeah. The podcast is only audio. And it's, of course, so with the video, I could look at their nonverbal, whereas on the podcast, I could just listen to the voice. Whereas here, I could look at their eye contact with the patient, how they were orientating themselves, and all of that. So it gave me a much richer idea of how they would actually do this in practice, how they would interact with the patient.
So they have to be in small groups?
No, it's individuals. They had to sort it out themselves. Each student had to do their own vodcast. They all had their own prescriptions. Who they used for a patient didn't matter. I did notice there were a couple, 3 or 4 students who became, I don't know if they got paid to, but they so enjoyed being patients because I saw them in all the others. It's the one thing I have learned. Next year, I'm going to specify not another pharmacy student. Okay. I'm going to learn as I go along. Yeah. Okay.
Are you planning to hold on to some of these vodcast examples for future students?
Yes, one of the criteria that I have on the rubric is how does this thing stand as a teaching tool in the format in which it's uploaded, so they know that. Yeah. So and also at the pharmacy conference, I will take out clips and put that in. So now this module that I'm doing in this semester, it's about being a training tool, because each student has a different topic to research. Okay.
And I think she's being very modest, because in 2008, when everybody said, go away with your stories, Juliet, of podcasts, etc., it was Lorraine Fakuda and Nadine, the only 2 lecturers on campus that started podcasts within the field. Until last year, and now she's started with a vodcast. So it's also her thinking about her discipline and integrating the tools. Never mind, she said she's older. She was beyond the young ones even with experimenting. Her son wants to say something.
Do you have any problem with YouTube channel?
The problem with YouTube was the students were worried about everybody being able to access it. And what had happened is they had to upload by Friday, and I have to mark offline. So it took me a while to get them, and of course I had to send one of my help please emails, how do I get these things off, and I've used that thing with a baseball mitt, a catcher. Yes, absolutely. What had happened is that some of the students removed their vodcast from YouTube before I downloaded. So they had to upload again because, the links, they emailed me their links. But as I said, we've still got a lot of technical issues. But I think in terms of relationships with the students and me achieving what I wanted to in terms of an integrated assessment, I think the technical issues we'll get there and we'll sort those out. And they won't do the YouTube because there is apparently another way when they use Google Drive. I've got to learn that still. Maybe just an appeal. Maybe that if you could produce a document which gave us, how to give it to our students, how to upload to Google Drive or something. Have you got something like that for us? That would be useful. We got it.
Doing Google training, all the Google Drive as well, and for the students as well.
I understand that, but sometimes training is very difficult for us. We don't have time for the students to fit into training. And mostly they're quite techno-savvy, so if we could just have a standard operating procedure, it would
So
help.
we've got some instructional manuals.
That would work wonderful.
That we give. Thank
Talk
you,
to you
Nadine,
later.
and
Thank you.